Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a number of attendees here today, so thank you again for joining. Just a couple of housekeeping items here at the beginning. Everyone is on mute. That way we can have a clear conversation from the presenters here. But feel free to type in any questions you have in the GoToWebinar console that was launched when you joined the webinar, and we'll get through those questions as best we can throughout the presentation and the webinar, and we'll also save some time for some questions at the end. So thank you for adding your questions. We know some of you are new to Clear Process Solutions and our WEBtips, so we want to give you a little bit of an idea of who we are. So today we're going to be talking about Winshuttle and forms and workflow, but that's just one of our product offerings we have. You know, we're focused on lean IT, and with that comes, you know, Winshuttle workflow. We also have lean imaging. You know, we use the product SideGen to help with capturing data from faxes and PDF files that we can use to kick off forms and workflow processes and integrate into your systems. We also have a dashboard product that looks at your Winshuttle processes that you have in flight to give you, on-demand metrics. You know, how many processes do you have in flight? Who's late? Who's on time? And really give you an idea of how your processes are doing currently, but also give you the ability to look historically and find out ways to improve your process. So if you're spending all this time automating your process with Winshuttle, using the dashboard tool, you can use that to gain some more improvement opportunities. Here's just a little bit of one of the pictures of the dashboards. Shows you how many things are open, number of processes complete within a certain time frame. And it's all mobile ready. You can view these dashboards on your mobile device, tablet, as well as your desktop. So what we're doing today, WEBtips, is a part of our Solution Care offering, as a way to keep in touch with our customers and share knowledge about Winshuttle. So Solution Care is our umbrella support offering to help you with Winshuttle tips and tricks like we're doing today, help you with projects, maybe you need to do some scripts, and those are all covered under our Solution Care. So if you're comparing to what Winshuttle offers for your maintenance, you pay your annual maintenance. That covers production issues, upgrade planning, and new features. But there's a lot of other things that don't help with, like how does this work? I have SharePoint problems. Let's do the install. How do I get this feature to work, or project planning? And those are all things that are covered under our Solution Care, block hour support process. All right, so what's a little bit about WEBtips? So the WEBtips sessions we do are every month we have a session on Winshuttle. Every other month we talk about forms and workflow, and the other months we talk about desktop tools to transaction and query scripts. And we have all of these posted to our site. I think we have a YouTube channel out there where these things are posted to, where all of you will have access to these recordings as well. So without further ado, let's jump into our presenter today. Tim Dempsey, one of our Winshuttle developers here at Clear Process Solutions, is going to be doing some WEBtips on forms and workflow. He's been with us now for almost a year, coming up on a year here soon. He has a SharePoint background and has been using workflow, other non-Winshuttle tools to do workflow, and has joined the team to help us with Winshuttle workflow and other system integration. So, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the topics here. So give us 1 minute while we change presenters. Okay, Tim, did you get the request as the presenter?
Not yet.
All right. Do you see on your webinar screen where you can share your screen at this time?
There it goes. Yep.
Okay. So you can go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Not quite yet.
Yep, now it's up.
There we go. Now we can see it.
Your PowerPoint slide, the presenter view.
Oh, okay. See, one of these is the presenter view. How about now?
Up under display settings at the top, you can just switch under display settings. Make a swap presenter view.
There we go.
That's better. Okay, take it away.
Alrighty. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for June 2016. My name is Tim Dempsey, as Lance had introduced me earlier. I come from a workflow and form background, as well as process automation. Today I'm just going to give you a bit of overview of what we'll be covering, what value it brings, and then get into how it all works. So the first topic I'll be covering it relates to JavaScript within Composer. We found a use case where a value needed to be created first before the second step in a sequence. So I'm going to show you how to extract the value from a field and then how that plugs into the next sequence. The next topic is going to be related to creating SAP compatible fields. Out of the box there are, and if anyone else has developed as well, dates can be pain, but there is a solution out there, and we will cover that in our second topic. Continuing on, we'll be working on counting the number of times within a loop. So there are times where a counter will be effective in sending reminders or where to point the next point of the workflow for the process. So we're going to show you how to do a counter and how that all works as well. And then lastly, just a brief concept about a main loop and what that entails, starting off the workflow just out of the gates with a loop, and why that can be efficient in your process moving forward. So I'm gonna transition over here to the demos. Let's see if we can kick off with the extract and execute sequence. Now, some of you may have already run into this, and if so, you may learn something new. If not, this might be new, fresh for everyone. So I will show you how we got to achieve this. We call this the demo extract and execute sequence. Let me just preface this that this is not a military operation. This is just the best thing I could come up with at the time. But so we found a use case where, and I'll pull up Composer while we're here, where our example today will be related to materials. And for instance, if we would like to update an existing material that is not already been created, how do we do this? These input fields are going to be mapped to certain fields, and the value doesn't exist. So if we look at a form, we have three fields here. One is a material number. So this will be what will be created in the first web service. There won't be any web services today. Just for the demo's purposes, I wanted to show you how it's going to be set up. And here's our log field. This is going to be our trigger. This is going to really create the extraction as well as set fields and run most of the JavaScript. And then here's our update log field once the script is run. So we have three fields here in the Create Material button. Now if we go back to our Solution tab and go to JavaScript Editor, here's where the magic happens. So we created a function here called Manage Material Log Field, or Evaluate the Material Log Field. We have our condition. If the log field is matching to the word created and is not null, we want to transform that into a string so we can use it, and then do the following. So I added in here alert just to show where this is happening within the process or within the script. But we're going to be setting two variables. The first one, we're going to extract the first half, and and then the second half, we're going to extract the second part. So we really just want the guts of the log field. What is the material that's going to be created? From there, we're going to set the value of that input field. So if you can imagine, we're going to execute a web service to create a material, or and then from there, we want to set a field which is going to update the classification. And then from there, we're going to this would be where we would execute a web service to update that material that was just created. So, put it simply, we're going to create a material. Once that material is created, we're going to input that value into the update script. So I want to just run a quick demo here. Yep, it's right here. We open this form up, and we see our three fields: material number, log field create material, and log field create classification. So we click here, create material. Here's the prompt. The material has been created, and the update script would now run on the new material. So in real time, how this would be working, it would be right into SAP. It would plop in here the log field is going to be or the create material is created, and then set this field here, and then we're going to use this field input to run another script to update that same material that was just created moments ago. So if I click OK, what we're going to see here is three fields populated. One, we have our material was created, our response back from SAP. Now we're going to extract that same material, and then back to our material number, and then within the material number, we're going to execute and run the classification script. So it's a three-part sequence. First part is creating material, then we're going to extract the material, and then we're going to update that material. So that's really the first topic that we're going to cover today. It can definitely help in many sequences, not just this one or in this example, but that is something that has been has helped us to achieve in our current processes.
I would just add to that, Tim, that a lot of clients, when you're creating materials in SAP, there's several factors that could go wrong with material creation, whether it's wrong input values or the data that's not extended to a plant. So there's many things that could happen when you're creating materials in SAP. We'd like to think that 100% of the time that every time we click that create material button that we're going to get a material created in SAP, but there are certain values that may not be existing, or we may not have the right purchasing org and things of that nature. So, the way that Tim set up this demo, essentially what's happening is we're checking to make sure that material was created before we update it. So, having an if statement and monitoring the log field that comes back from SAP, we're monitoring that log field to say, was a material created? If the material was created, then we can update classification information on that material, and that's why you see the second log field there, and also why we have this extraction. Because what we don't want to do is try to run two transaction scripts where one of the transaction script is an input from the other and the first one fails. So thanks for demoing this sequence here, Tim, and showing us that JavaScript that you put together.
Absolutely, yeah. That definitely speaks to the value of what Justin was just saying about it really tries to create an error-proof solution so that it is updating once it's been created. So moving on to our next topic, it's going to be creating today's date in SAP compatible format. So I'm going to show you a couple things here. One is in transaction, how it looks how it looks as it stands out of the box, and then we're going to talk about within Composer, how it's all going to work, transforming those dates into compatible dates so that it's easily written to SAP in a one-to-one relationship. So, out of the box, most dates come with a date and timestamp, but those that date format is incompatible with SAP, right? So what do we do? Well, we're going to have to format that date so that we're just writing to how SAP handles dates with a month, date, and year. So to accomplish this, let's open up Composer. And for this example today, we're just going to be utilizing today's date and an end date. We're going to be modifying the today's date to be compatible, and then that's the date will be inputted for SAP. So we want to write a date into SAP, so how do we do that? So once again, with three fields, we have today's date, the start date, which is the date that will be reformatted for us to write to SAP, and then an end date. Now, with today's date, if it's just for this example, we're going to default it to today. So if you see here, default value is today. And then we have a rule on this. So this rule is going to format the current today's date to MMDDYYYY, so month, date, and year. Now this is an SAP friendly date, and this can be inputted in row 2. And then if we so let's just run this here really quickly. Go back. So I'm going to show you how it's set up, how it looks, and how this can be achieved. So we have today's date. What we see here is really just the look of today's date. How the real value, though, includes the date and timestamp. We have our reformatted date here, which is set by our rule on the today's date, and then our end date. Now, at this time, also, this is just for an example for today's date. This can work for any date inputted or any date field that you have on your form. So we have here in our Composer, there's 2 areas to work on: Composer, and then the other area is in transactions. So I'm just going to pull this up here, and what we have here is our mapping fields. We have 2 dates, and we see here the rest are strings, and ignore these here, but we're really just talking about these dates. So as we just went over, we have an SAP friendly date here, which is a string, and we need to create that same format within transaction. So here, these field types out of the box are dates, and to write a string to a date will cause an error, which we don't want. So we want to create this also into a string. Now, to do this, we have we have the options here in our properties, and for dates, it offers us the option to convert to string. So here we're going to convert here to string, and now we see here this is updated as string. And then in our second one, convert to string as well. So we have our start date, and then we have our end date. As you can see, this is a fixed value. So now, what have we accomplished so far? We've updated the fields, the field types within SAP to be able to be compatible with the strings. And then in Composer, we've modified our dates from a date format to a string format, and in a format that will be conducive for SAP. So no more painstaking hours of wondering how we're going to write to this. There is an option out there and a solution to accomplish writing to dates. So that will cover our second topic here. Our third topic.
Tim, before we move on to that, we have a question and then also just a further elaboration on that. So let me go ahead and pull out the question here.
Okay.
So for the date format, inside of transaction, when you record your Winshuttle transaction script, as you saw, your transaction script actually had a date field there, or said date. And Composer, looking at Composer, Composer has a date field as well. And the problem with the date field, like today's date, it comes as year, month, day, and when we try to pass that year, month, day to SAP, when it goes to SAP, it actually says invalid date format, and then it says underscore underscore slash underscore underscore slash underscore 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 or underscore, and so SAP, really expects a date format of month, day, year, and we run across this error from a lot of our projects' perspective all the time. So it's not only, it's something you're going to deal with on the material master, but when we're creating purchase orders, you'll run across the same exact error, that the difference in SAP formatted dates versus Composer formatted dates. So, the way Tim has this set up is absolutely about the only way you're going to be able to get this to work is to create what's called a helper field. In Tim's case, he's calling it start date. And start date, you have today's date that'll write in today's date, but again, it'll be in the wrong format. Running a simple JavaScript will then go ahead and format it in the correct date so that your Winshuttle transaction scripts will run all the time. And if you, Tim, can you show the start date input type? If we look at the start date, I think the type of that is a string as well. Or text box, yep, element type text box. Okay. Let's see if I can ask some questions here. The first question is going to be from Rob. It says, looks like the material number is enterable field. If so, why? Since the process is creating a material. So Rob, I think the answer to that one is that it was just simply a demo purposes, not to have a full-blown solution, but typically, yes, material number would be a read-only field that you want to be able to add.
Yep, that's correct. That's a good question.
Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, we will go on to your next demo then, Tim.
Okay, great. So our next topic would be counting of a number through a loop. So let me just pull up this solution as well. So there comes a time in a process where a counter needs to be reached in order to, for scheduling purposes. So, for example, if a time in a process there is a 2-day pause or a week pause, 7 days or 14 days, so on and so forth. How does Composer handle this? Is this possible? What would that look like? So really, the value is in here is that Composer can handle this with a few plugins that are available, and this can be for this example, for this demo, is going to be utilizing for a reminder, and here within our form, our workflow, excuse me, we have a main loop and a send reminder email loop. We'll get back to this main loop in a few minutes, but here we have our main loop. How this is all going to work, just for example's sake, we want to check to see if reminder days. This is a field in the form, so allow me to back out here to the form. For this example, we just have a first name, last name, and today's date, as well as reminder days. So, we want to capture how many reminder days we want to provide. So after submission, some work's going to happen, and we want it another action to occur after a set amount of days. And within the workflow here, we want to check to see if that's not blank, because if not, we're going to just end the workflow. But if there is a reminder, we want to be able to set these dates appropriately. So if we go back into our send reminder email date, we have here a decision. We have our wait. So this is going to be where our counting or our time span occurs. This is our plugin for we have it here as a minute, but this is set up as a date or a days, minutes, and seconds. Excuse me, I'm battling a bit of a cold here. So just so far down, we're supposed to have this for a minute, and from there we have our a set column plugin. So the idea is we want to wait a day. We want to set a column to add 1 to the previous day. So at first it's going to add 1 to the current day, and then if this cycles back through, we're going to add another day to 2. So just to see what this looks like here, we have our expression checked to yes, and we have our field here, count reminder days plus 1. Now this format is in a SharePoint promoted field format. So when we're setting these fields, we're going to go back to the form here. We have in our form data tab our fields, our basic general fields, as well as reminder days. This is the input field. And then our count. This is our helper field to run our running counter of the reminder days, or how many times the loop has run, or the wait plugin has run. Now we're going to promote this to SharePoint. And this is what our set column is pointed to, is to that SharePoint field. And then from there, we'll just reset back to our form. So we're going to set our form field to our SharePoint field. And we're going to go back to our end and jump back out. So on this loop here, the send reminder email loop, our goal is to continue to loop through this until our reminder days is equal to our counter. So what we'll see here in a second is, if I put a reminder date at 2, at first these two won't equal, so it's going to add a counter day, and then wait a minute, or it will wait a day. And then it will, after it waits a day, it's going to add its day as well as set the field, and then restart. So then we have a 2 to 1. It's going to run once more time, and it would check to see if the reminder days are they equal yet. If they're not, it's going to wait a day and then add its day. So it'll be a 2 to 2, and then after that second day, then it will send that approval task. So the idea here is that we want this loop to loop back if these are not equal. So our loop condition is showing here that our condition is just once these reminder days and the counter are the same, then that tells our workflow that this approval task has been sent and it's completed our reminder mini process, if you will. So just to kind of sum up how this is all really working, we have a form with our reminder days. This is our field that we're going to be looking at within the workflow to see how many days to loop through. We have our counter field, which is promoted to SharePoint. And within the workflow, we have our 2-step reminder email loop. Check to see if today's date is equal to, or the counter days is equal to the reminder days, and if not, add 1 and loop back through. And this is handled by the parameter of our condition. Is the counter day here equal to the reminder days? So just walk through a form. We'll see how this would work in action. Now, pending time, there may be, I think there's a 5-minute for each one, so there might be some time here. But we see here, if we just put let's just, how about 2 days? So back to 2 days, and we'll save and route. So what's happening now is that it's processing, it's going through the workflow, and if we flip back to Composer, we'll see here that it is yet to meet this condition. It's going to wait 1 day, or 1 minute in our case. It's going to add one to the SharePoint field, or SharePoint column, excuse me, and then just match it back to our form field as well.
So Tim, why this is obviously going to process, we can see down at the bottom there, your demo counter is in a task name called wait 1 day. So it's sitting currently at that plugin for wait 1 day. Why we're waiting on this, and we'll come look at it. I want to leave that workflow up there that you have, because I want to explain maybe why this is pertinent, because some Winshuttle users may say, well, reminders already come out of the box with Winshuttle. So if you're thinking Winshuttle does have reminder messages, and there's actually 2 concepts I'd like to introduce with this workflow. So can you bring up your Composer workflow, Tim? So one concept is reminders. Now, Winshuttle out of the box has reminders that say, based on a duration, setting the duration column. So if you could click on the approval task, for example, Tim, there's a duration column as the very first property, and it says 1 day. And what that 1 day is saying is you get 1 day to complete your activity inside of the Winshuttle system. Once you get close to that activity date and you haven't completed it, there is a reminder message that says, hey, just a reminder, you need to create these materials in SAP, or you need to approve this purchase order. After your activity's missed, there's what's called a past due message inside of Winshuttle workflow. So past due messages will go out and say, hey, you're past due on approving this purchase order, and you're going to keep on getting those past due notifications, all based on that duration that was set up, that 1 day or 1 hour, however long you're allowing somebody to approve something. Now, you can turn those messages off and on the right side by saying, send past due email. You just set that to false, that property to false, and then your users won't get past due messages. The same with reminders. There's send reminder messages, and you can set those to false as well. What the requirement was by the business side is, hey, I'm working on these requests. You don't need to remind me every single day. Let me set my own reminder frequency. So setting up your own reminder frequency is very maybe common. Like, hey, I have to approve this PO, but I know it's got to go through the CFO and the CEO. Give me 3 more days, and then remind me after 3 days. So allowing the user to set their own frequency or own due dates, this is one possible solution that you can do that. Winshuttle also has another plugin that we haven't really implemented or used that will actually allow you to update your due dates. But in this case, this example, this works really well, because then the user can say, well, it's going to be 3 days or it's going to be 5 days. Let them set their own reminder frequency. So that's one really good example of how to use a counter and a number of days to assign them that task again. The next thing, and in that case, we would actually be setting the reminder messages and past due messages to false, because we don't want the out of the box, so we want to set those to false, and then we'll send the emails in the system. The next case that actually makes it really important to use this counter functionality and to keep track of how long the process has been going is when you're waiting on SAP to do something. So for example, when we're creating materials inside of SAP and we've got all the material created, next we want the SAP system will actually cost that material. And once the material is costed, then the material status gets updated that the material was costed inside of SAP. Now we don't want a user just sitting there being reminded, hey, is costing done? We don't want a user to go to the forum and say, get the latest status, is it costed yet? Because that's just unproductive for their time and an ill use of their time. So how do we best do that with inside of the Winshuttle toolset? And using a workflow and a counter, the wait plugin is extremely important, because what we do is we use that wait plugin, we wait the number of days or hours. So in one particular client, they say, well, wait every 6 hours. After 6 hours, check to see if it's been costed. If it hasn't been costed, then wait another 6 hours. However, you don't want to wait 6 hours for the rest of your life, because this material would just get stuck. So having a counter in there, that counter actually gives you the condition to say, go ahead and get out of this loop if this has never been costed. Obviously, something happened to the material in SAP. We don't want to leave these workflows here that, with the workflow just sitting there and always checking for costing and never getting checked for costing, you'd have to go cancel your workflow process, and we don't like to do that. So instead, we keep a counter, and say when the counter hits, in Tim's case, so he's waiting 1 day, and we say after 5 days, if this thing still hasn't been costed, then let's assign it to somebody in the master data team to take care of this material. Figure out, is there a problem with this request? Does it need canceled? Does it need to go back to the requester because we can't cost it? Or do we just need to give SAP a little bit more time? So go ahead and wait for costing again and wait for another 5 days. So if you design your workflow right and you implement this costing workflow you're seeing here, it gives you the capability to check not only do reminders in the system, but also let SAP kind of Winshuttle run in the background to check to see if SAP has costed a material, and if it has, then go forward. Otherwise, after so many times of going through this loop and waiting for 5 days, then someone needs to take action on it. So with that said, I'll let you turn it back over to you, Tim, and maybe see if your task has been assigned.
All right, thank you, Justin. Yeah, very good use cases, and more than just this small demo, but through any more processes, this can be utilized. So just go back to here our demo. I just want to demonstrate here. This is our form. It's up at 11:42, and we see here our reminder days was at 2, and our count is at 1. So this is telling us that it has successfully passed our plugin for wait, and it set our column here for 1. And if we go back here to, so it's accomplished the first step. It's waited 1 day, or in our case 1 minute or 5 minutes, and now it's looping back through. So as we come back here to the list, we'll see here our process time is at 6 minutes, and we're back to that wait plugin again. So you can begin to see how this can be effective within not just a reminder process, but for many other situations. It really gives you a scheduling customization, as well as in other areas. One was a reminder. Another can be for the SAP related, as well as direction within the workflow too. Now, if we continue right here, it's fair to say we'll see another 2 and the work process to complete. But while we're in here, I just want to share with you the one concept that we have come to find has been a staple for us. So this is about a main loop idea here. So within this workflow, we see here that it starts out of the gates with a main loop. It's called main loop. It's really just a loop. And why we have this here is because at any given time, now that we built this in from the start, and anything we've built into this, this, let's just say the scale of this could be from, the complexity could increase from, anywhere from a handful of loops to, double digits. This could just increase in size, or stay the same as well. But here, what this gives us the ability to do is to bring everything back to square one. So beforehand, let's just say I'll just put these here, two down here. We just have a start loop and start building our processes with approval tasks and conditions and or decisions and some value setters, and then maybe another loop in here to start the next area. That will work. That is fine. You can build, start building the process out of the gate. But we've had a situation where a client is asking, hey, I want to send this back to the beginning. How would we do that? It might not happen often. I think in our case it happened, I think two times in 2 weeks. So it does vary, but now because we've started this workflow with the main loop, we can start or redirect the workflow wherever it is within the main loop back to the beginning. So if there, for instance, the requester needs to update, make an update, or something outside of the workflow needs to happen and then needs to go back to the requester thereafter, because you built in these fail safes, but you built in these measures, that is easy to do. Now let's say this main loop wasn't here. What happens then? Well, that would require adding, recreating this with the main loop, and then re-adding in each plugin, each task, basically your entire process within the main loop. So if you start with the main loop, then you've covered, a possibility of the process needing to go back to the beginning. And it also helps as almost also as a almost like a placeholder, not a placeholder, but as a container for your process. So that's just really just an concept and idea that we started to implement. It's a good measure for those use cases, the use cases where I need to restart the workflow from the beginning, and it really is no time at all to add a main loop from the start.
Yeah, so I would even echo Tim's thing here is that now at CPS a best practice when you're developing any workflow, the first thing you do is click start node. You put a loop in the middle and then an end node. If Tim clicks on his main loop here, the loop condition's none, the type is none, which is just basically a container, right? So it's just holding all of this other information that's happening in the workflow. But at the end of the day, what we found, if we didn't have this outside container and you're designing a very simple workflow and it goes from approver 1 to approver 2, then it ends, and you meet your requirements, everything's good, and then next thing you know, someone comes and says, well, I want to send it back to approver 1. If you don't have that loop there, that means you have to actually go, as Tim said, put the loop on there and then go recreate every single workflow node you've had. You have to create it inside of that main loop. And what we've found is that it takes us 2 seconds to put a main loop and put everything inside of there. It takes us probably anywhere from 4 to 16 hours to recreate your entire workflow if you didn't set this up right. So as a best practice, as a web tip for you, everyone, create that main loop, create that loop block, always have that there, put everything, then do all of your workflow work inside of the main loop. Even if your loop condition's none, it'll save you a lot of rework in the future.
All right, and just going back to our counter loop, we see here that our count is increased to 2, which is good. This is it meets our condition here for our reminder days. And if we maybe refresh this, we see it's completed. So today, just to recap our today, we showed you and shared with you how to extract text from a field and how that can be utilized for a sequential process. You know, we've taken out the middle part of a field. We've extracted that. We've set that field to another field, and now that field can be utilized in the next steps of the process. We showed you how to create compatible dates within Composer and SAP, which builds a one-to-one relationship, and also workflow, how a counting measure can be not just created for a reminder email, but also for many different types of processes, and how this can not only give you more of a hands-on metric, but also customize your process so it can be, so it can fit your needs. And then last we spoke to a main loop, a best practice we started just recently, or we've been utilizing moving forward, and we hope this will bring not only value but future impact for your development. I'm going to swing it back over to Justin.
Okay,
so for some final thoughts, and Thank you guys very much.
Perfect. All right, we'll open it up for any open questions that anybody may have right at this point. If you want to type in the chat window anything you've seen that you may want further clarification, I'll take a look real quick to see if we get any questions or any chats. Okay. Looks like we're okay there. So let's go ahead and move on to our events for CPS that are coming up here. So July 21st at 11 o'clock, same time, we're going to have our CPS web tips for the desktop products, Winshuttle Studios, so Transaction Query and Direct. So you'll have another training coming up here in next month. On August 25th, we're going to have our Winshuttle Heroes group meeting in Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Applied Industries that's offered to host for us, and we're of course going to have our famous CPS after party where we hold our Lean Utopia networking event just to talk about different business processes people are trying to automate. November 17th, we have our Winshuttle Hero group as well at Kitchler Lighting, so that's coming up on or that'll be right after our November 17th. They've offered to host it right in Cleveland as well, and again we'll be having our after party. So for any future events, for registration, both for the Hug events, the Hero user groups, our Lean Utopia events, or our web tips, you can visit our site at www.clearprocesssolutions.com, and you can click the events tab on the upper navigation. Hopefully everyone learned a trick or two today. Again, if you have any thoughts on web tips, please feel free to email webtips@clearprocesssolutions.com. Everyone have a nice rest of your day.